Hey, it's Russ Payton with Roleplaying Public Radio. This is RPPR episode 176, running and playing online games. And with me, not as always, but for these episodes, we have Birk and Kyle from Best Pal Brigade. Yeah.
One day. Howdy, y'all.
I think I'm better than Aaron in that regard. So,
Objectively, yes.
So yeah, this episode we're for reasons that are pretty obvious if you've been, existing on this planet in the last month and a half. We are going to be talking about running and playing RPGs, tabletop RPGs in an online format. And we've been doing that for years now at RPPR for our Patreon, Discord, and for various one-shot games. But Birk and Kyle have both been doing that and trying different formats. There's many different ways to do it. So we'll dive into that and sort of, instead of focusing on particular technologies, although we'll mention them, of course, we'll focus on sort of like the etiquette and like how it's different than running a tabletop game and how to avoid everyone talking at once and then nobody talking, which is a thing you have to get used to do for online voice chat. And that kind of thing. So, but of course, before we get into that, we do have a bit of news. And that is Birk and I have launched a new podcast, Night Clerk Radio, which I've talked about at least a few times on here. But it is a vaporwave and dark ambient / haunted music review podcast. Birk, do you want to describe it a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I think this is the first time we're talking about it where it's now really, really out. Mm-hmm. It's a thing. It's no longer coming soon. Yeah, so Night Clerk Radio is just our attempt to have conversations about various internet niche genres of music and sort of the theory and ideas behind them, why they came to be and why they sort of persist through our consciousness sort of and remain popular. Mm-hmm. So yeah, every episode we either discuss sort of one theory topic or review and discuss two albums around a theme or a genre, mm-hmm. and just try to dig into like why it matters to us and people.
Yeah. We've had a lot of fun recording the episode. Learning to talk about music has been an interesting challenge because there's a famous quote, writing about music is like dancing about architecture, and certainly mm-hmm. podcasting about it is pretty fucking adjacent to writing about it. It turns out, especially when it's weird instrumental music with very few, if any, lyrics, and ambient music, which is, richly layered soundscapes. And how many times can you say variations of that?
It's sort of interesting to realize that, like, while you really enjoy something, you maybe don't have a critical language about it yet. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to see what it's like in a year or 5.
Yeah. So go to nightclerkradio.com. It's to visit our website and see the episodes we have up. As of this recording, we have 3 episodes online, and but we also will. It's on Apple Podcasts, any podcast directory. If it's not on one, let me know, and I'll be sure to fix that oversight. And so subscribe, tell your friends about it, and of course, we have a lot more planned for it. And so if you want to know about vaporwave, if you need music recommendations. Now's your time to dive into that sweet abandoned mall that's in the sky and also in Japan.
It's real good, y'all. As someone who has like not a lot of time to listen to podcasts, I'm super excited to listen to that. I think it's the 3rd episode, the dark ambient one, like cryo chamber stuff. Mm-hmm. I got it queued up for after this. I'm super.
Yeah. We have made this podcast shorter than our other ones. We're trying to go for a 30-40 minute episode. We're also mirroring them on YouTube. We'll have links in the show notes for this episode if you would rather listen to it on YouTube rather than through a podcast app. It's certainly an easier, less amount of time to digest than our regular episodes here at RPPR. And of course, that's because the idea is you listen to the podcast, then you listen to the music afterwards. So, listen to the vaporwave.
RPPR ASMR.
Yeah, there we go. That'll be our new Patreon.
Patreon funding goal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll just be I'm rolling dice. Yeah, how's that? Is that? Yeah.
There's a mini in your ear. Let me just get that real quick.
Yeah, we're here to help you all, and if that's what it takes, that's a sacrifice I'm happy to make. But if not, then we won't. But anyways, we should probably focus on the topic at hand. Yeah, it's been not quite a month for a lot of people, maybe a little more depending on your situation, month and a half of living in quarantine under a lockdown, stay in place, shelter at home, whatever you want to call it, social distancing, whatever you want to call this, because of the coronavirus global pandemic, and it's not going to abate anytime soon. So a lot of people have turned to the internet to run online games, tabletop games, because those are really fun and a way to be social, especially now. So we've been doing them on RPPR for years now, but so we've kind of figured out a few things about playing and running them, but there's a lot of different ways to do it, and I know, Kyle, you've been diving into this a lot more because yeah.
There is a necessity for us doing it because all of our, like, on twitch.tv/best Pal Brigade, ooh, that's a plug, all of our games we play in the Fleshverse, and that ain't happening no more. So we kind of have to figure it out real quick. We've been doing a lot of tests, so I have some insight.
Yeah. And Birk, you've been playing in a lot of games. You have a Star Trek campaign, I believe, and using Fate Core as a system. Right. Yeah. So we've all had some experience doing this. So we should mention, I guess we could start with some of the ways of doing it. So I'll just go and describe the way I'm usually run games online, and that is through Discord, which is what we're recording this particular episode in. Discord, if you're not aware, is a chat room messaging platform. It's free, and you can set up what they call a server. Servers have voice channels where multiple people can join. You can also do group voice calls through it. They also have video calls now, and yeah, Craigbot has a lot of additional functionality because they have these extensions, add-ons called bots that people have made. So there's dice rolling bots. We're using Craigbot, which records voice channels. So if you want to record it for your own podcast or just for your own, posterity, you can record voice chat. And there's obviously tons and tons of tabletop RPG focused servers that are publicly available that you can join. There's one for Eclipse Phase. There's Discord is integrated with Patreon, so that, for example, there's the RPPR Patreon. I'm sure Best Pal Brigade has their own Discord server.
Yeah.
And yeah, running a server is free, although there are paid extra enhancements you can get for it, which is Discord does it in a weird way, but
Nitro is so fucking inscrutable.
Yeah, server boosts. You get 2 for free if you pay $100, or you can get them for $15 a month each, and you need 2 to upgrade your server to level 2. And then, yeah, it's but you don't.
It feels like the natural extension of like collectible card games and like loot boxes, and that it's like you just have to keep throwing money at it until it gets to what you want it.
Yeah. Now Discord is free. It is oriented towards gamers, so there are some annoying little gamerisms in it. Especially when someone joins a server, those stupid little text messages. But yeah, so for me, with Discord, with the Craigbot and the dice rolling bot features, that's all basically I've needed to run games online. I tend to use just voice chat. One, I guess, sort of the first thing is, if you're running a game, figure out the internet and recording setup for everybody first. Because with Discord, one thing I found out was, one thing I found out early on back in the Google Hangout days, Google Hangouts doesn't really work anymore because it's no longer integrated with YouTube, is there's a bandwidth issue. And so, I found out adding video webcams of people made it longer calls would get buggier and as time went on in general, regardless of platform. So if you can do a game without seeing the people, or if you if you want to do one long session and like I would do a Discord call that would last 3 hours for a game, and that would be pure voice, but if I would add webcam to that, that would like reduce the bandwidth available, and it would get buggier as time went on, and people would drop out or their voices would glitch out. So you have to be aware of that. So I guess that's sort of the first concern. So so that's Discord. What other platforms have you all used?
Recently or historically?
Both, I guess. I mean, recently is probably more relevant, but like
totally.
Yeah. But yeah, what platforms have you used recently?
All of my gaming for the past few years has been pretty much what you described, which is Discord plus Roll20 if people want any sort of maps or management.
Mm-hmm.
But even Roll20 feels unnecessary a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
So like we'll use it for Star Trek, but really just because it has fillable characters that can roll dice for you and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't use any of the mini or any of the other features. It could be entirely Discord.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of interesting because I was thinking we're like in a kind of a golden age of being able to do this online. Because I've gone back to like playing an AOL chat stuff in the night.
Oh yeah.
Like, which is yeah,
AOL. Yeah. No, certainly the technology. I remember, even like 5 years ago, like this kind of the ease of use has improved exponentially, and has become a lot more accessible to people. So yeah, Roll20. Kyle, what I assume you've used this as well.
Yeah, Roll20. If like gun to my head, I think it's the most like, I hope I'm using this word right, ubiquitous. Like it's the most like well recognized, and like everybody is sort of at least adjacently familiar with it. So it's quick to get people into it. It has built-in audio and video calls. The quality isn't great for either of them, but much like Birk, what they were saying was, like it's very useful for like if we were testing like a Blades in the Dark game. It has Blades in the Dark specific character sheets and Blades in the Dark specific roll bots that like know all of the rules of like the different types of rolls that you have to make. There's integration for a buttload of different systems. There's pre-made modules you can get. Roll20 to me is the easiest one to get people invested in, because there's almost zero buy-in, and most people are probably already familiar with it. It might not be the best one in my opinion, but it's the easiest one.
Yeah, for those listeners who aren't aware, just to be thorough, Roll20 is a major, the largest virtual tabletop RPG app out there for running online games. It has a ton of features, bells and whistles, and so yeah, it does have integrated voice chat, right? But you can use it in conjunction with Discord, right? Like,
yeah, there's no like inter-app functionality to my knowledge. It's all rolled neatly into one somewhat messy pack.
Okay. So yeah, it has online. Yeah, there's different modules for different rule systems. I also, for example, I've played several sessions of Roll20 as a player for a 5th ed D&D game of the what is it, the Saltmarsh, Secrets of Saltmarsh.
I've never played a pre-written D&D
Ghosts of
so I don't know.
Ghosts of Saltmarsh. Yeah, it was a dungeon crawling adventure. I mean, it did things like showing how much of the dungeon was visible to me based on torchlight, rolling initiative, keeping track of damage, monster visibility through on a grid map, a lot of neat stuff. So
yeah, some of the dynamic lighting features and things like that in Roll20 are so sharp. Like they're so sharp. But some of the high end stuff is when you get into the premium prices, where you have to actually have like Roll20's Discord Nitro equipment.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there is a free version of it. There's also a paid that's how they make their money, is through paid, extra features. So yeah, Roll20 is very good. It's obviously more of a time investment than just like opening up a voice channel for everybody and just talking, that's sort of the easiest way. But that's obviously there are other platforms. I know there's another one called Fantasy Grounds, which has been around a while, and there's a ton of modules for it, including Call of Cthulhu modules. I think I've done some Fantasy Grounds. I remember it being buggier and slower, but it was also for a D&D thing, and that died after a few sessions as well. There's
Fantasy Grounds, in my experience, is okay.
Mm-hmm.
The big problem that I have with Fantasy Grounds is, like, to my knowledge and sort of based on the research that we were doing, was like, if you wanted to like make a campaign and like be the GM and design everything, you have to have a paid account. I'm not sure what the specific pricings are, but that was an immediate turnoff for me.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's not actually how it works, then their marketing like information needs to be rewritten, because the communication of that was super not what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, there's a ton of, those are the two biggest names in tabletop games, but again, you don't need a specific one. Obviously there's also now Zoom is the big thing now, for people with webcams, and certainly webcams, make it a lot easier to deal with certain problems in tabletop. So there's certain issues that come up in online games that don't come up in real games, like everybody talking over everybody and then everybody shutting up at the same time, because you don't have
delay.
Delay, and also like verbal cues, like or visual cues. Like you can see someone wants to talk because they're like gesturing, like, oh, let me say something, or literally raising their hand. That's harder to do when you're just voices in a void. So but yeah, so those are some of the issues you have to deal with. So what other issues tend to come up in the online games aside from the everyone talking and then everyone shutting up sort of issue, in your experience?
Mic etiquette is pretty much the first and biggest thing that comes up, especially that are recorded.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of problems, especially, so a lot of the people I play with are some way involved in podcasts, so they're pretty good about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been pretty shocking playing with friends who are normally offline friends, and then having to be on mic with them all the time, and just like like breathing and eating and like having separate conversations with people off,
knowing when to use push to talk and when not to. Like, yeah, I've had to mute people in calls specifically because like their smoke detectors chirping every 5 seconds, or there's a barking dog, or they're doing exactly what you're describing right now. It's very difficult, especially for
Yep. Yeah, no, the smoke detector is kind of alarming, but don't. I hope they're not. Their house isn't on fire.
It's like the dead battery chirp. Like, if you ever had, it's like someone who won't change the 9-volt for 2 months.
Jesus, I would literally go insane if that was if that went.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, like after a day, I would just like I'm gonna do it. It's very effective. But yeah, mic etiquette. So yeah, be aware that your mic makes noise, or will pick up noise, even if you're not the one making it. So I mean, some of it's unavoidable. If there's a dog barking, outside, you can't do anything about it. But yeah, when you're eating or drinking, especially eating, mute the mic, or at least like push the mic away if it's not a headset. Another thing, don't leave on music, or if there's someone is watching TV in the house, close the door to your room.
No one's fucking home right now, and I have shut the door to the room I'm in. That's how paranoid I am.
Yeah, no, it's like you never know if someone's going to come back in, or if there's going to be a loud noise somewhere in the house. And yeah, even if you're not recording a podcast, like be aware of that. It's just good etiquette. I mean, some of it's unavoidable, but it's something to be aware of. Another thing is, of course, internet connection issues. Everybody will have them. no matter how expensive, except maybe Birk, because Birk has the Google Fiber or whatever it is. Yeah,
You lucky ducky.
yeah.
I have the AT&T fiber. Yeah.
Okay, so it's AT&T Fiber, but yeah, outside of Birk, maybe everyone is going to have internet connection issues, especially if you're doing webcams, because they use more bandwidth, and more bandwidth is being used in general because everybody's stuck at home. So, how do you handle, like, somebody said something, but their voice roboted out or just dropped entirely? Do you use text messages in the chat room? Do you ask them to say again, or what? Birk, what do you usually do?
Yeah, I mean, somebody else is usually editing it, so I just will point out that they got a lower body there.
Mm-hmm.
Because that can happen to me. Even it may not even be a connection issue. You can just have tech issues with your mic.
Mm-hmm.
You just politely point it out or type it.
Okay.
So like in the RPX role playing exchange Discord, you'll see all the time, because Adam is kind of the producer, and there's all these text messages of Craig notes of like, so and so's breathing. Please stop breathing like loudly into your mic. I can hear you eating, etc. So he just text notices that makes little notes to himself to edit them out later. If you're just playing with friends, you could just tell them.
Yeah. Kyle, do you do anything differently, or is that pretty much?
If we're doing it live, which we've sort of had to do experiments on before, one of the big things, like if you're actually putting on like a proper show for viewers and things like that, is to utilize text, because it can be distracting if you have to like stop the game and have a conversation. Like personally, if you're friends with everybody and you're all mature adults, like it's not going to be that bad, but more often than not, it's easier just to like ping them with like an @ in Discord, because I feel like that's all everyone's using right now, and be like, hey, mute your mic and move it a little further away from your face, please, thank you. And then that's usually enough.
Yeah. So it's basically, be aware of these technological issues that can happen, both from the microphone to the internet connection. It's sort of, a little different than being, at the same table. But I guess the biggest issue isn't even what platform you're using or what technical problems you're having. It's how is running a game different? How is playing a game different? When you're all, either just voices, or you can see each other in little box on the screen. Like, Birk, for you, like, what is the biggest difference for you in terms of as a player, from being in a tabletop game to being in an online game?
Yeah, I think there's sort of two big things. Even with webcam, there's so many little nonverbal cues when you're just in a space with somebody that make it easier to interact in a lot of ways, either to stop talking and yield space to other people, or to go along with them in certain ways. So it's very different the games I've played when I've like visited Springfield. That's the only live games I play anymore. Versus playing online. That's sort of the big one. The second one is not unique to online, but is probably exacerbated, is just focusing on the game. Sort of on, if you're playing at a table, you can kind of just put your phone away and focus on but when you're sitting at your computer, you just have so much in front of you. It can be weird to kind of stay focused.
Yeah. I think it's reasonable to be, everybody has a different expectation of how focused you should be on the game. Some people are more tolerant of that than others. It's helpful. It's certainly sort of a table, social contract kind of issue of that everyone should be this kind of neighborhood of focus, like, don't have outside conversations at the table, or don't be looking at furry porn at the table, which is, I don't know how strict you want to be at this. But Kyle, in general, for you, what are your experiences?
I mean, I guess as someone with sort of like attention issues, I would give a bit of a counter argument with polite intent. I'm very guilty of talking too much and talking over people. But one thing that I feel like is a little bit easier on the computer is because there is this reduction in noticeable social cues and like seeing that I'm not, farting around on my phone or anything like that. Like I'm very much the type of person who like can focus on multiple things at the same time and has a hard time ignoring external stimulus, which in this case has kind of been pretty beneficial for me. Like if I'm running a game, I find it much easier with, 2 computer monitors or like a Windows 10 like split screen left right to have my notes and then to have everybody's faces or whatever in the same direction, because I don't have to like shuffle through things as much. I can pay more attention. No one's going to feel like I'm not paying attention as long as I'm responding at the appropriate social cues. I've actually found that it's a lot easier as long as you're still being respectful and aware of whatever the redefined social contract for your virtual table is going to be. I've actually found that it's a bit of the opposite of your two's experience, funny enough.
Yeah. Certainly for me, I it's pretty easy for me to focus on a game if I'm running it. But I do have those issues when I'm a player in an online game. It depends on what the game is, to a degree, and who's running it and that kind of thing. But yeah, no, it's a struggle. The struggle is real. Sure. But for me, I do know, like, I tend to run different games. I'm more, there's certain RPG scenarios.
Has to be totally different. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Like there's certain games, like, I don't know if I would run Lancer, online until they give some like really good Roll20 support. I mean, maybe that would be the test. Can I roll fucking Lancer, and its ridiculous tactical combat online? That would be like the ultimate challenge, right? But something that is more like I try and have games that are more conversational focused. Games where you can talk to the bad guy, talk to the villains, and like interact with them other than just shooting them in the head or like using the ritual to banish them to the the hell space or whatever. Birk, oh, sorry.
Nope, I'll shut up.
Okay.
No, go ahead, man.
Oh, I was just gonna add on that if you're cool with it. Definitely know the system that you want to play,
mm-hmm.
and that your group wants to play, because right now we have 2 campaigns on our stream. One's run by Kat and one is run by Lauren. And Lauren doesn't like combat, but we've been playing Savage Worlds, which is kind of a combat simulator. So she's been taking this as an opportunity to say, all right, well, fuck the virtual tabletop. Like, let's just redesign all combat into being more freeform. And Kat's game is Monster of the Week, which has no table elements, so it's much easier to adapt to a virtual space. Know your system and know your group. Have that conversation well in advance, I think, would be a big piece of advice I would give.
Yeah, definitely. Birk, any other thoughts on that?
No, sorry. I was just going to say that I really appreciate Kyle's point about being able to focus on the game more if you have kind of more tools in front of you. And I should really have differentiated between that, which I do actually agree with. When playing and listening, it's easier to have just like a Google Docs open than typing in like NPC name and what happened, and staying focused that way.
Yeah.
I was more referring, I think, to like extra game.
Oh, so like playing Minecraft or something.
So I've been in game where I can just, we're all interconnected. I'm there too. I can just see people having like huge unrelated conversations across multiple Discords. And then just being like, oh, sorry, what's happening? What am I rolling? I'm like,
Yeah, no, that ain't it. That ain't it.
Yeah.
I might be reading something on the side, but I'm not doing that.
Yeah. That's a good point. Like if they're constantly asking what's going on, that's that you should probably have a conversation at that point. It depends on like how the table feels. If everybody's doing that, then that's that group's social contract. But I mean, for me, if I'll check my Twitter notifications usually, if like, ooh, somebody messaged me, somebody added me, or liked one of my tweets. Thank you,
You little clout chaser.
Yeah, basically. Hey, man. I got to play that game. Got to be a micro influencer, or whatever the fuck they're called now.
Oh shit! Is there a new word that I'm not aware of?
I know. Well, I saw micro influencer. That's the last, because there's Instagram influencers, but those are people like 100,000 followers or whatever. There's micro influencers. Yeah.
No.
You doubted me.
Look, this is the shit I need to know for Star Streamers. I'm going to be reading all about this today.
Oh God. Okay.
I am now a nano influencer.
Nano influencer. That's it. Yeah. Today you learned that, and you can't unlearn that. So yeah, I think system actually matters a lot for online games. Because there's a couple issues, not just running the game too, but there's also character creation, and whether you want to do pre-gen characters. Because I think it's one thing I know as a GM is I do not want to make pre-gen characters for any game, and have to create to the point where they're a file that I can send to the players that they can look at. If I have to generate characters from scratch, we're just not running that system. So I tend to go towards systems where, one, there's either pre-gens already made, or two, online character generator tools. So games like Zweihander, Call of Cthulhu, Trail of Cthulhu, those kind of games have online character tools. So you could here, make your own character, or here's a huge stack of, or Delta Green. Here's 1,000 Delta Green agents. Pick one. Tell me what page number it's on so I can look up their stats too. All right, that's your character. All right, great. Let's move on. Let's see how these FBI agents fucking get eaten by Shoggoths for the 8th time or whatever. To be cynical. So yeah, I don't know. Does that come into either your considerations?
I mean, I will be more likely to play in a game if they're pre-gens.
Oh, sure.
Especially on short notice, because so many games now feel like con games, are almost like pickup games, where it's just, hey, I need some people. Like we played Zweihander. It was pretty short notice.
Yeah.
I'm going to run Zweihander this weekend. Okay. Which is great, because I love in Zweihander and Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay that you can just totally just completely generate a character. You don't have to think about it at all. You just sit and roll for 10 minutes and just see what you come out with on the other side. And that's actually pretty fun.
Yeah. Exactly. The Zweihander tools, and the fact that even without the tools that there's random character creation. I would actually Eclipse Phase 2nd edition is actually in that category now, because it's so easy to make a character that I don't feel like you could, and there's pre-gens available. So it has both easy character creation and pre-gen. So if I wanted to run Eclipse Phase, I'm fine with that ask. I'm going to run a game. I'm comfortable with the player having to do some work, which is to make a fucking character, or have one, or at least choose a pre-gen. So Powered by the Apocalypse games are also excellent, because it's literally just a checklist. Pick this or that. It's a menu, and you're done for that playbook, right? Kyle, do you have any? Does that? Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that sort of lines up with some of how I like playing. If it's a new system, I am much more comfortable if I either have a pre-gen or someone to hold my hand through character creation. But if it's a system I know, I'm a character creation slut, and I will make a character within 5 to 10 minutes if at all possible.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I've been looking at the new RPG that came out on PDF, Heart, which is from the people who did the Spire RPG. And Heart has its own system, and it's a new system to me. So but there's a pre-made adventure with pre-made characters in it. So I'm like, maybe I'm okay with the players learning the new system, because they'll at least have pre-gens. But I would not ask players at this point to make characters in a system they've never played in, for an adventure that I'm going to run. That's quite a bit to ask, especially most of these people are only going to have the PDF. They're not going to have the book available. Yeah. So, system matters. And then of course, again, like I said, I'm not going to do a tactical combat scenario. I wouldn't do puzzles as much. Puzzles I think are harder to do online. I don't know.
I don't think puzzles are a good game mechanic, full stop.
Okay.
I think that there are two types of puzzles, and I think that the internet would only exacerbate frustrations with puzzles, because there's either we solved it right away and the GM might be a little upset, or we're never going to solve it. Fuck this puzzle. I hate you, GM.
Okay. I mean, also investigation, mysteries to a degree fit into puzzles technically. So, yeah.
Okay. That would be different. That's
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think mysteries interact with your character a little bit differently, where you're, for some reason, people are fine with the idea that your character is not as, you, the player, are not as good a detective as your character. So that you can make rolls and like kind of get pieced together externally, right? Like kind of helped along. But puzzles very rarely do that. Like they very rarely let you interact with it like at a meta level as a player is like, okay, I as a player am not as good at solving puzzles as my 18 intelligence wizard.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to be kind of left up to the player.
Yeah. I mean, that's conversation outside of online gaming is like,
Sure.
yeah. If you my brilliant wizard should be able to instantly solve this Sudoku puzzle that's been reskinned for a dungeon. Can I just roll to have my wizard solve it, or I have to do the fucking Sudoku? I mean, there's a level of bullshit like that is kind of like busy work that the GM assigns the player. But on the other hand, you have mysteries, which, I mean, you know, who done it, who did the murder? Was it a Shoggoth or was it a cultist, or like how they do it, why they do it, that kind of thing, which is sort of the heart of a lot of scenario premises. So like,
I would say that the mystery is different than the puzzle and is different than the combat. Like if we had to describe like 4 different styles of gameplay: mystery, puzzle, combat, and exploration. I think that exploration and mystery are the most appropriate for the digital space because they have the most room for sort of free form interaction and like rule malleability to an extent. As long as you're running your mystery with like the gumshoe styled like mandatory clues with, you know, auxiliary clues upon checks and things like that. That to me is when an online game will shine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing is like you want the players really engaged and have a memorable game. And so like those key moments where everything sort of clicks together or where it's at, you know. But yeah, that's again for me. That's why I try to make games that are more conversational in nature, because like, what is this but a conversation, you know, through the internet? Like, what else would really shine? I mean, what kind of elements have stood out to you? Like, what kind of scenes have really stood out for you for your online games recently? Do you have any examples of memorable elements or encounters or scenes or anything like that?
Well, in Zweihander, fighting the manager, becoming a radical communist gnome, went to live with the elves.
Yeah, that was pretty fun. Yeah, that's our Shrine of the Lake scenario, which will be out on RPPR soon, on early access the Wednesday of probably by the time this is recorded, this will be out on the RPPR early access on the RPPR Patreon. Patreon.com/RPPR. Yeah, that was a pretty good character arc. I like that. Kyle, any particular memorable moments for online games recently?
It's not necessarily a moment that arose from like the game itself, but more it arose from sort of the unique combination of online aspects in which we had a player who was pretty skilled at art, sort of doing live drawings with like a screen share on during the game, to which like when things would be described, like, you know, he could draw what was happening so that way everyone, you know, because some people have different like strengths and weaknesses when it comes to visualizing images in their head, but through this like live actively commentable like shared screen art, it helped everyone get on the same page about like what a vista might look like or like what a person might look like. That to me was one of the coolest, and I don't want to say like revolutionary things because I'm sure plenty of people have been doing this forever, but to me that stuck out as like really, really cool.
Well, I mean, yeah, like that's a really cool idea too, like making use of the advantages of the medium. Now we've been sort of talking about the disadvantages, but there are advantages too. And so like a screen share live drawing of what's going on is phenomenal. That's really cool. Yeah, because like theater of the mind is a thing, but everyone's theater of the mind is a little different, and so having some sort of visual reference really fucking helps. Yeah, there are advantages you can do. Like instead of handouts, you have websites and like PDFs or pictures that you can share with players to give them. So like that's how the mystery could shine, is like you give them the newspaper article and they can just read it all at the same time, and then or like pull up Google Maps, Google Earth, to like here's where you are.
So one thing that we've been working on is like metagame stuff, in which has a very specific context in tabletop role-playing games, but bear with me, it's like a game within a game. That might incorporate like shared online slideshows that we can use. But the one thing that has been really interesting to me, because at BPB we really like to like combine and utilize what the medium is really good at and like sort of twist it as far as we can. We're looking at, it's called Twine, I believe, which is like an interactive storytelling medium, which is kind of like a choose your own adventure game. And we've been working on ways to use that in a way that simulates like a computer hack or like an AOL chat room or something like that, like ways that we can utilize that in a game to have a scripted interactive puzzle that isn't necessarily a puzzle. I know I was harping on puzzles before, but like exploring a way to create a whole new type of gameplay within the online role-playing game we're already playing.
That's really cool. No, that's an amazing idea. Like using like, because that's your clue. You could just wrap all your clues or your evidence. Like remember, the goal of a mystery adventure is not finding the clues, it's interpreting the clues. So like, yeah, if you had like, I mean, you could do that in a modern day adventure too. For example, the forensics report, and just make it like a Twine thing where people can go through different sections and pick up on different evidence by, oh, let's look at the chest. Okay, here's the heart is highlighted, so select the heart, and there's like, oh, a little bit of information about the heart. But yeah, having like a little chat bot to like, oh, here's the AI for the engineering section and it's damaged, so it's going to be a little glitchy. What are you going to do? Oh, it gives me this information. Okay, well that means this, and so we have to do X.
So the cool thing about Twine, I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, but the cool thing about Twine, to build off of that, is within the game, you can put, so like staying with, let's use your forensic example. If we're using like a Call of Cthulhu or a Delta Green, you can put like, you get to the heart and you begin to study its thing, roll a medicine check. And then you will have right there a branching path that says pass or fail. And those reveal separate information, and it locks everything behind it because you've put in like a hard locking binary, I passed or I failed, in this minigame.
Jeez. Yeah, no, that's boy, that's a really cool idea. But I mean, that's time intensive, but like that's,
oh yeah, it is.
I mean, for a set piece kind of thing. And I guess a lot of people do have more time now. Yeah, do you have any of those available for sharing, or are those just kind of custom made for your own?
They all super suck right now. Like they're not this is all in conceptual stages, and we're still sort of testing it to see how far. But like when we get one, yes, I will definitely send it your way.
Cool. Birk, I mean, there's a lot of astronomy resources out on the internet. Have you used any of them for your Star Trek game?
No, because it's Star Trek.
Oh, yeah,
got him.
It's fantasy.
Yeah, no, fair. But have you used any? Have there been any interesting clues or set pieces or anything with that? Using the advantage of the internet and computers.
No, not off the top of my head. That's actually interesting.
Yeah.
I'd have to think about that a bit more.
Yeah.
I like the idea.
Yeah, no, it's a really cool idea.
If you want, but how about a call to action for listeners? If you have some like cool ass ideas of way to integrate tabletop and like other digital services in your game in ways that like we couldn't even fathom, maybe tweet at us or post a comment or something, because I would love to hear it.
Yeah. I mean, off the top of my head now, I kind of want to make a soundboard and just like MLG air horn every time someone fucking crit fails or crit hits.
Shit, that actually ties into we stream with Slobs, Streamlabs OBS, and one of the things that you can get running through it with the Stream Deck is this thing called Voice Mod, which like changes your voice modulation. It's like it's okay. It's not the best, but there's a lot of depth to it if you choose to make your own. But that I have been using. It comes with like a pre-made like saw one. So we did like a really quick, goofy character funnel where anytime I was talking as the person who had put them in this character funnel, I put the saw voice modulator on.
Nice. I like that. Cool. Well, yeah, there's a lot to think about. There's a lot of resources out there for these online games. Certainly, if you have more questions, again, if you just want to play, you want to try out, hey, we run literally 3 games a month on the RPPR Patreon. You can join one and run by me or one of the other RPPR cast members to get your feet wet and ask questions about it. But yeah, this is sort of, if you've ever been curious about it, now is the time. There's also, if you don't have a regular group, there's tons of online groups you could find, ask around on various social media platforms or Discord servers. And again, RPPR community has one, Best Pal Brigade, I'm sure has one. So yeah, it's a brave new frontier, right? That's the Star Trek saying, right? Something like that.
That's it. No,
I've never seen Star Trek, so
neither is Ross. It's fine.
All right. So yeah, when we get back, we'll have some shout outs.
I'm Noah Carden.
And I'm Aaron J. Shelton.
We're the co-hosts of Thinking Too Hard About Anime. The show is an episode-by-episode deep dive into some of our favorite anime. We give you some history, some film critique and analysis, and overall, we try to figure out what makes the series we cover so great.
For our first season, we're covering Cowboy Bebop, and we are both gigantic fans of the series.
I own an original 2001 Swordfish 2 and Faye and Spike figure.
And I started smoking because of Spike. I don't anymore, but he was the impetus for it. So yeah, the show has deeply affected us, and we're very excited to talk about it. Come along with us as we think too hard. We're bi-monthly, with episodes coming out every other Thursday. You can listen on Anchor or wherever you get your podcasts.
And we're back. Anyway, we have some shout outs though, because you got a lot of time. This, media production might be shutting down around the world. We're going to run out of new movies, TV, and video games pretty soon, it seems like. But hey, that just means you have time to work on your backlog, because everybody's got one. TV shows and movies and video games you've been meaning to play. All those games you bought on Steam real cheap and never played. Hey, it's time to break those out. But yeah, let's talk about some of the things we've been consuming in our lockdown. So I'll go first with a book I read called The Murderbot Diaries Rogue Protocol. This is the 3rd book in the Murderbot Diaries series. It's a sci-fi series about basically a robot with some meat parts, think kind of RoboCop-ish, that gains freedom from its AI governor controller and is going on misadventures. This 3rd book in the series, I've enjoyed the first 2. They're quick reads. They're very fun. Murderbot is very relatable. It just wants to sit back and watch TV, but it has to, also not get caught. So it has to keep, and it has morals. It wants to find out about secrets. I quite enjoy it. So that's my first one. Kyle, you had a YouTube video you really enjoyed.
Oh, whoa. Yeah. So I'm kind of a fan of the YouTube channel Super Eye Patch Wolf. He does these really interesting deep dives into specific topics. It's usually like anime or nerd shit adjacent. And what I really like about them is that they don't have like an attitude of like punching down. They're not mocking in any way, which I say specifically to preface that I just watched his very recent video on it's called The Bizarre Modern Reality of Sonic the Hedgehog, and it talks all about like the warping and memification of good old Sonic, and it does it in a really interesting, engaging, and not like belittling way, which I really appreciate, because it's so easy for media to like get lost in sarcasm or like condescension. I really, really, really like it.
Yeah, I really liked his thing on fake martial arts, which is
it's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah,
Real good.
Yeah,
Real good.
Birk, do you have any?
Yeah, I have a couple. So starting with books, I recently finished reading In Praise of Shadows by Junichiro Tanizaki, which is a book written in the 30s on sort of Japanese aesthetics, but a wide range of like niche aesthetics, and not just architecture, but food and culture and cosmetics and all this stuff. Sort of by someone who was kind of being thrust into Japan's pull into modernity in the 30s. So it's an interesting collection of essays. Kind of contrasting those changes.
Cool. I kind of want to read that too. I'm currently working on reading a novel called The Sundown Motel, which is about a haunted motel. But I haven't finished it yet, so we'll review that for the next episode. But it's very on brand for me so far. But my next shout out is for a video game that actually Birk and I have been playing called Hunt Showdown. I can't believe I haven't mentioned it yet on the podcast. Hunt Showdown is a multiplayer co-op / PvP game where you're in Louisiana in 1905 in a monster infested bayou, and you got to go kill a boss monster and take a bounty token off of it and try to escape. The problem is there's a random number of players who also spawn in with you, and you can play solo in duos or trios, but everybody else is a rival hunter who will kill you to get the bounty token. So you, there's monsters in there, and they're dangerous, but the real danger is, of course, other players. And it's a good game. There's some interesting level up mechanics to it, and it's quite fun to play with friends. It's not a game I would play by myself, but it's the weapons are interesting. They're all like revolvers and bolt action rifles. There's only one semi-automatic rifle in it, a couple semi-automatic pistols. So they're and you're also in a swamp. So visibility is a thing. Sound is actually really important to figure out whether other players are. It's a good game to play with friends, because you're all gonna get fucking murdered by better players, but occasionally you get the drop on them, and it's very thrilling when you actually grab a bounty token. You have to get the fuck out. Oh god, everyone's trying to murder me. I don't know, Birk, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's a game that I think broadly find frustrating, but when it does go your way, kind of rejuvenates you.
Yeah. Actually pulling it off and escaping with the bounty token is quite thrilling. And I would be so frustrated with that game if I was playing it by myself. If I was trying to level up and grind and gave a shit about it. Oof. Yeah. That would be tough. Kyle, do you have another shout out?
Yes, it's another horror adjacent game. It's Song of Horror. It's called Song of Horror, and it is an episodic game that you can get on Steam. It's 3D, and the best way that I can describe it is that it's a very intense atmospheric game with like permadeath modes for certain characters. And what sold me on it, and here's the thing, I don't want to go too in depth into the game, because like you just have to experience it. There's a lot of like auditory things that occur, but what sold me on it was my friend was telling me the story about how he was playing this one character who, because of some things that happened, got the bad end in his storyline and died and was sort of consumed by like the dark entity that's prevalent throughout the entire game. But then while he was playing a game with a different character, like down the road, the character who had died sort of came around a corner as he was investigating a sound and shot the active character dead. And I was like, the way he explained it was so good, and I cannot recommend this one enough. And it's like the first episode I think is like $8 on Steam, and the season pass for all the DLC is not terribly expensive. If you have a chance, definitely check it out because it's really good.
Cool. I will certainly put it on my Steam wish list. I am waiting right now for XCOM Chimera Squad, which is releasing in a couple days. So I'll have a review of that in the next episode. But after I'm done with Chimera Squad, I'll probably give that a shot. So Birk, do you have another shout out?
Sure. So one thing that people might be concerned about is the ability to find a gaming group or people to play with. So this is sort of a double shout out, but they're related. There's a handful of systems now that support either solo or one-on-one play. So those would be Ironsworn RPG, which is totally free, I'm pretty sure. But it has all the rules for like GM-less solo play, or if you just want to play with one other friend, maybe a roommate or a spouse or a significant other of some sort, or you can't form a big group. And then the other one is Pellegrin released a version of Gumshoe that's designed for one-on-one play. So both of those might be good tools now for maybe can't find.
Yeah. If you just have like smaller groups like that, that's certainly a valid approach to it. It's one I want to try out at some point. Definitely like I have Cthulhu Confidential, which I think is their hard book version of Cthulhu 1-on-1, or at least they're one of their takes on it. So
that's right.
Yeah. I'm real interested in that. So my next shout out is actually another horror game called World of Horror, which is a pixel art horror investigation game that's kind of turn-based. It's set in Japan in the 80s. It's very 80s. It looks like it was designed on a Macintosh from the 80s. I quite like it, and it's got a very Junji Ito vibe to it, and it's got some weird. The game mechanics are pretty unique, actually. It's well, I would say 100% unique, but it's unusual. Like, it's turn-based. You go to different locations. You have to spend time to do resources. It's I don't know. I like it. And
it's like roguelike-y.
Yeah.
Joy.
That's a good way of putting it. And like, it's not like one overarching story. There's like, it's different mysteries, and you can solve them pretty quickly. So you don't have to spend hours and hours and hours to grind out a thing. But yeah, I quite enjoy it. So, Kyle, do you have any others?
I can't say that I do. No.
Okay. Birk?
One last one. It's just a book, and it's related to Night Clerk Radio, is Ghost of My Life by Mark Fisher.
Oh, yeah.
It's a collection of sort of essays and writings on the idea of like hauntology and kind of like how we've been robbed of certain promises of the future by...
Yeah, I've read a part of it. Yeah. Yeah, research for our hauntology episode, which we need to record at some point. Yeah, I have been. I need to, after I finish the Sundown Motel, I'll go back and finish Ghost of My Life. It's quite good. My final shout out is a movie on Netflix that Maddie recommended to me, and we watched together because she'd seen it like 3 times, and I rewatch it myself. It's called Circle, not The Circle, just Circle. It's from 2015, sci-fi movie. The basic premise is that 50 people wake up and they're in a circle. Each one's in a little, like, and they're trapped. And if they leave, they have to remain standing. If they leave, they're killed. If they leave their little spot, they're killed. But they quickly find out that one by one, they're all like dying. One of them is dying every few minutes, and they have to figure out what's going on and why, and like, what are they going to do about it? And it's 50 people in this movie. They have 50 people, and they're all like unknowns, except for like one actress who was in a couple episodes of Dexter or something. But it's very, and the entire movie takes place in this one room. But for a very basic premise, it's very compelling. And you're like, ooh, I want that person to die. No, don't. Oh, that person died. Oh, no, I'm sad. And there's some twists and turns, And I quite enjoy it. And it's like a 90-minute movie. So it's a fun little indie sci-fi movie on Netflix. So fun for, a lot of people getting killed by weird forces. Those are some things to check out. And again, if you have any questions or comments about our episode, please tweet at us, leave a comment on our website, or, we have a Facebook group. And we already gave the anecdote, we have a Zweihander game coming up where Birk's gnome is lured into the thralls of communal life by druids. But for how long? You'll have to listen to the game to find out. Any other last minute? Kyle, where can people find you on the internet?
If you want to get at us, you can find us on Twitter at BPB Games, Facebook.com/BPB Games, Twitch.tv/Best Pal Brigade. Money's tight for everybody right now, so I'm not super comfortable plugging our Patreon, but if it's less tight for you, Patreon.com/BPB Games. That's where you can find me. Hope to hear.
Okay. Birk, where can people, if they have Vaporwave questions or Star Trek comments, where can people reach out to you?
So totally through Night Clerk Radio or just at Birk Bergenson on Twitter. I'm sure we'll also put it in the show notes. Mm-hmm. That's basically the main place. Or just I'm around all of these community Discords, so always feel free to message.
Yeah, and obviously, I'm at Ross Payton on Twitter. Message me on any of the RPPR platforms, or join our Patreon and get on our Discord. Find your own online games. But yeah, everyone's out there. Stay safe. Thank you all for listening. For those of who are patrons, thank you so much. It's keeping a roof over my head, and thank you for supporting RPPR in these times. And we'll talk to you all next time. Bye.